All righty, welcome back everybody to Nerds on the Run. I am Andy. This is Ari, and we're only two this week, so we're gonna try to keep it light. We're gonna hit you with some news. Our topic of the show is the most recent episode of WandaVision. We'll kind of get into our nerdosphere of what's going on with each of us in all things gadgets, comics, or whatever we're into these days, and then a little show and tell for something fun bonus at the end. Okay, so. To start with, everybody in the game side of the nerdosphere was really chomping at the bit for the most recent Nintendo Direct. Erlen, I think the last time you got a Super Nintendo Classic, right? Back last year's Nintendo Directs or 2 years ago Nintendo Directs. Were you up on that bandwagon?
Absolutely, and I still have it, and I still haven't played it since I got it.
I was gonna say I barely played it since I got it, but it was those were the I was hoping for. I think my expectations for this Nintendo Direct were a little high. It's been over a year and a half since they've done a real one, and it was very disappointing to say the least. Not to sound too entitled, but reminiscent of the kind of Wii U days of Nintendo. Do you even know what a Wii U is, just as like a mainstream person?
Of course I do.
The Wii U was a bad time, and this was, so it's not a compliment when I say this is reminiscent of the Wii U days. It was pretty disappointing. The director of Zelda showed up, and just to tell us that there's nothing to show, and he wasn't kidding, like it wasn't a troll. He should have just not showed up at all. But Mario Golf was on there. The new Mario Golf actually looks like a lot of fun, but some people feel strongly about Mario sports games. I think they're fun, but everyone was a little burned by Mario Tennis on Switch, which I agree with, because Mario Tennis on Nintendo 64 has a special play. It has at least 15% of my arthritis is probably because of that game. So Mario Tennis on Switch wasn't great, so I'm really hoping that they learned their lessons for Mario Tennis on Golf, because it does look like a lot of fun. So that's really the only thing that I took away from it, which is, I mean, again, I don't want to be spoiled. It's fine, but like I was expecting some. Last year was the 35th anniversary of Mario, and so they did a lot of special stuff for that. This is the 35th anniversary of Zelda, so I thought there'd be some blowout stuff with that, and that was not the case. So anyway.
Let me get this straight. When you started talking about Nintendo Direct, were they going to make an older system compatible, or were they talking about a new system to compete with the new PlayStation 5 and whatever Xbox is naming the new?
That's a good question. Yeah, they don't have any plans to launch new systems. This Nintendo Direct was just all updates on what's going on with the Nintendo Switch, and all their their family of systems related to Switch Lite. The biggest thing that they probably dropped was the last Zelda game that came out before the most recent iteration, the Switch Zelda. So the last Zelda that came out before that was on the Wii, not even the Wii U, like the Wii 1. So it's turned 10 this year. They're porting that over to the Switch. And that one, to give Nintendo their due, there were a lot of people, some close friends of mine included, that have accessibility issues that couldn't play that game because it was so motion based. And so they have a version of that now that is, because the Switch Lite doesn't have detachable controllers, they have a version of it that's all button mapped. So I think it probably will be a good time for people that had accessibility issues in the past. Though I don't want to give Nintendo too much credit. That's not why they did it. They did it so they could sell it on the Nintendo Switch Lite without the detachable controllers. But I'm glad that people with accessibility issues will get to play Skyward Sword, which was the previous Zelda before the current one. So. But I want to hear about the new one that hasn't come out yet. But oh well, they're still working on it behind closed doors. So that's it for Nintendo. As far as trailers go, big trailers, there was a big popular drop for Cruella. The new kind of it's to the high production standards that Disney's used to. It's sort of that whole Maleficent. Let's take a villain and make kind of a relatable backstory kind of formula. They basically took. I mean, really not, I won't say shot for shot, but tonally, they kind of took Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, and sort of Disney just kind of saw that and said, we could make something like that. We have bad guys. Let's do that. So, Birds of Prey vibes, but like with Disney characters. The only thing is Harley Quinn, I think, with the whole Stockholm syndrome, brainwashing, she has a duality to her, kind of like a Harley Quinn, right? Where she has a light side and a dark side. Cruella, her thing is animal cruelty and skinning puppies. So what's relatable about that? I think they picked the wrong character for this movie, probably.
Absolutely. And I saw this really funny meme, and
Mhm.
that Emma Stone, when she ages, and they have a picture of Glenn Close,
Mhm.
obviously from one
Oh,
of
like
her.
a face morph thing.
Well, yeah. So I think Glenn Close was in a Netflix movie that was based off a book recently, and I think where
I see.
she lives in a trailer park, so she's like, this is her in the future, and then they don't kind of match, so someone is just like making fun of it. It definitely looks, like you said, high production, looks good. Is this going to be a straight to Disney Plus, or is this something that's going to come out in theaters when it's safe to do so?
That's a good question. I think they said it was gonna be a theater release for June. I could be wrong about that. I think they're shooting for a summer release, and I guess they can always call an audible closer to the time. But
Yeah,
you
I
know,
don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know the character. She's just a bat. She's a two-dimensional B villain. I don't really see the point in it. So yeah, I don't know. Just it was kind of out of nowhere, and no slack to Emma Stone, like her British accent and stuff. Like she's done British work before, but like she does a good job. Like I'm not saying it's even like a bad performance, but also like who the heck's the movie for? Like it's been probably 20 years since I've seen 101 Dalmatians, but like it's not like a mystical thing. It's just like some like henchmen trying to take this family's dogs from them, and she like at one point she shows up at this party and like drops this like match or cigarette butt or something, and her whole like gown goes up in flames, and she has like another costume underneath, kind of like I don't know if you saw the Hunger Games, the Mockingjay costume thing. Like it was like that kind of, it was like so mystical, like witchcraft. Like I don't understand because it's set in like 20s Britain or right UK, right? Like I don't know. So I don't know. It just seemed weird. It just seemed very strange to me. But
I never, 101 Dalmatians wasn't one of my favorite Disney movies growing up. I've seen it. I know it's based off a book that kind of goes off the rails after 102 Dalmatians. I think they have aliens coming down to Earth, and just
wait, are
kind
you
of just
kidding?
like, no, no, I'm
I never
serious.
heard this before.
Yeah, something that I've looked up. Yeah, it's very interesting, but
Okay.
not interesting for. I don't know. Obviously I really like what's going on with Disney Plus, mostly because of the Mandalorian and WandaVision, but some of the other stuff they've come out with, I haven't really been that excited. I know you talked to me about Soul, and you said it's halfway decent, but it's more kind of like on the mature side as opposed to not the content, but more for like
Sure.
all.
The concept, yeah.
And but I still haven't watched that. I still haven't seen Mulan. And I love the original Mulan, and
Yeah, you're not missing a lot, man. It's a good action movie that's just kind of a little soulless. But yeah, so
it'll
yeah,
be
there's a lot to like on Disney Plus. But yeah, I'm maybe we can do it in a separate episode. But all the Star Wars shows coming up, I'm a little bit worried about the weight that's going to put on the Star Wars lore. But there's at least like two of those 9 shows that I'm kind of excited about. So I don't know. We'll
yeah.
see.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it, especially I've kind of been on the fence of maybe that's going to be a summer project, either revisiting or kind of getting into Rebels and some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the animated shows as opposed to the movies.
I tried a little bit of Clone Wars, and I'm sure I'm not to naysay for any big fans of it out there. It's not that it was bad. I think I think I have to kind of wade through it. I think it would have been one of those shows that if I watched it as a contemporary, it would have aged with me a little bit. It was probably aimed at my demographic, but like I think it gets a little bit more mature later. So like I'll probably wade through the first couple seasons of Clone Wars before it gets more to my speed. But yeah, we'll see. There's so many of those shows, and I saw a photo of Ewan McGregor tweeted out recently that he's getting pretty shredded for this Kenobi role. I don't know why, but if he's supposed to be somewhere between him and Alec McGinnis, I don't know that I don't know that he needs to be shredded. But hey, whatever, man. It's all good with my books, though.
I'm just excited that he's actually gonna get a chance to revisit that role because I think he's one of the fewer positives from the prequels. Obviously,
Yeah,
none of
absolutely.
that trade war and politics, but no
You know,
Jar Jar.
weirdly enough, as I've gotten older, I think the politics were an interesting idea, but again, that movie was like, who is that movie for? The Jar Jar 9-year-old jokes, and then like dry politics that didn't hit anybody. We could go far down that tangent, but anyway, we'll talk about some of these Star Wars shows as they get a little bit closer to see what's up. But so anyway, Disney's doing some weird stuff. We'll see what's going on with Cruella. George R. R. Martin. This is weird because this one dips back into the game sphere a little bit. If most people don't probably know this, that don't
Hang on. Did he finish the book?
No. This has nothing to do with Game of Thrones.
Oh well. So wait, hang on. So he's picking up another project which he has started. So
Yes.
He's gonna dupe, maybe Netflix into getting a show for him, and
Right.
then he's just gonna hold it over their head for the next 10 to 12 years.
He's not going to live.
He's not gonna finish it.
Yeah.
Finish the freaking books, dude.
So yeah, I mean, if it puts you at ease at all, when I say this is one of his projects, it's I think he's on there partly for brand name recognition. Definitely has a lot to do with some of the history and lore writing, but he's partnered with an incredibly sharp, competent, more than masterclass, I should say, game director in the form of Hidetaka Miyazaki. So he is so George R. R. Martin and Miyazaki are teamed up to make a game called Elden Ring.
Okay.
So it's going to be a Miyazaki game, which you've probably heard of, like Dark Souls and those kinds of games. Like Miyazaki's very famous for those kinds of games. So it'll probably be that kind of game, but the lore and the universe were sort of helped crafted by George R. R. Martin. So he's been working on that too, instead of finishing the books. But I don't know. He's probably done. I'm sure he's gotten his writing credits and cashed his paycheck in already for the universe building that he needed to do to get that started. Now I'm sure it's all in the hands of designers and stuff. So I'm hopeful it maybe just took, I don't know, 6 months or a year of his life, and he's back to doing his other stuff. So
this is video game related. This is not book related or a show.
Right. No, Elden Ring is a video game. There have been nothing since it was announced, like over almost 2 years ago, a little over a year and a half ago. And then the PEGI rating system is something international video games. We don't use that. We use the ESRB here in America, but the PEGI rating system, I think Australia and some of the other countries in the PLA region use it. It got a PEGI rating, like a tentative PEGI rating. So the only reason they would do that is if they're gearing up for something. So it might not mean much, but we might get more out of Elden Ring pretty soon. So I'm really, Miyazaki is one of my favorite game designers. Whatever people think about the Game of Thrones show, George R. R. Martin does make really good lore. So I think especially just borrowing that part of his sort of writing credit and then running with it with another team, I think could be really cool. So
now, is Miyazaki the same video game creator that recently had a game that featured in the commercial the gentleman from The Walking Dead?
No, that is a good question. No, that was a similar kind of brainchild though. That was a Hollywood sort of A-lister and a game designer getting together. That was what was his name? Oh my gosh. Who what's his name that made Pan's Labyrinth? Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
That was Guillermo del Toro and oh my gosh, the guy who makes the Metal Gear Solid games. I'm blanking on his name right now, but they got together and made that game. So that was a.
I'm researching it right now.
I should know. I know. I say his name probably every other week. I just can't think of it right now.
So Death Stranding.
Death Stranding is the name of the game. I just can't remember the name of the director. Yeah, it's starts with a K. Let's see. Hey Google, who directed Death Stranding?
Kojima Productions.
Kojima. Yes. Yes. Okay, Google, stop. Hideo. Thanks, Google. So yeah, Kojima. Yeah, Hideo Kojima. Yeah, he went solo. That was actually one of his first solo projects. When he wasn't tied to Konami anymore. Him and Konami had a famous breakup, and then as soon as he was a free agent, man, the likes of Guillermo del Toro were attracted to him for partnership. So but it's a very similar, different genre. That's more science fiction. But yeah, A-lister Hollywood people kind of dipping their toes into the game sphere. connecting with people that are already good at that stuff to try to realize storytelling there. So that's a good time.
Yeah, just as a point of reference, my video game knowledge probably stops at Double Dragon or Streets of Rage. And
Street War. Hey, you know, this one's a little one for you. I should have mentioned that was kind of fun from the Nintendo Direct. And for Streets of Rage, I know you didn't play it as much as me and one of our other pals, but there's a Streets of Rage style game from the Scott Pilgrim universe that they're remastering for Switch. So that just came out recently too. So
is this something that I need to purchase hard copy or something I can download digitally?
You can just download. There's just a digital download of it. Yeah, and it has online play too. So you could play over the internet. Play one person is Scott Pilgrim, one person is Kim. Beat the crap out of a bunch of hipsters. It's a good time.
Well, when you get a chance, maybe you could send me that information and I will download it. Not to change the subject, but the last game that I purchased on the Switch was it was a kind of like a throwback-ish to the 80s, but it was a newer version, kind of like what's it called? And very similar to Streets of Rage. The name is escaping me right now, but I enjoyed it. The game starts with, like, there's this kid who lives on the side streets, but like each level is like a different mission. So you have your Streets of Rage mission, you have your Metroid mission, you have
I see. I don't remember what that's called. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, each level is in the style of a different retro game, right? There's like a Contra mission. There's like a yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm still either in the Gattaca level that I can't seem to beat.
Oh, really? That's cool.
I did really well on the Streets of Rage level.
That was your prime, yeah, dude. Well, yeah, the Scott Pilgrim game is fantastic. Maybe we can get Pete to rope us into some free player on that one. Okay, so that's all I got for news. There was a lot of other stuff that happened this week, but I really wanted to just dip our toes in some of the things that are most impressive to me. Let's move on to topic of the show. That is WandaVision episode 7, right?
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this. It's funny because we talked at length about we kind of did almost like a summary of the previous 6 episodes, and we kind of talked theories and everything went just out the window. I wouldn't say it was the greatest episode, but it sort of obviously there's going to be spoilers, but maybe we can start with non-spoilers.
Sure.
But yeah,
go ahead.
I really enjoyed the whole thing with Vision trying to. So just to begin, it was very much like 2010 style documentary sitcom. So it had more of a Modern Family vibe to it, but the intro was more like The Office.
Sure.
And I felt they were going to lean a little bit more on The Office side, but I felt like it was more Wanda doing a Julie Bowen from Modern Family. Really well acted.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they both had that sort of mockumentary sort of camera angle in it, right? So they were just kind of borrowing from the flavor. But yeah, you're right. More like Modern Family than any of the other ones, probably.
Now, the biggest thing is, and as I've discussed in previous podcasts, one of the things that I was really excited, and when they talked about, hey, I have this astrophysicist or astroengineer that will meet us, and so my head's been spinning. Like, who's going to show up? Is it going to be the Fantastic Four? Is it going to be Rhodey? And all of a sudden, we have Monica Rambeau go to the meeting site, and it is nothing but a fancy sport utility vehicle that you can use on outside.
Like a lunar thing or something. Yeah.
And so I was really hoping that,
that they were
Fantastic would
produce somebody. Yeah.
And I was also thinking, like, hey, you know what? We've been hearing all these rumors. It's going to be an Office style or mockumentary style. Maybe John Krasinski. Now he will be.
The episode's called "Breaking the Fourth Wall," right? That would be the way to get Reed Richards in, right? In a fourth wall break.
And him and the FBI agent swapped in the newest seasons of The Office. They tricked Dwight, the FBI agent. His name is escaping me right now. So that would have been pretty effective. Obviously, we're talking about Feige. We're talking about Disney. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And obviously We have the lieutenant who says, "Hey, no, this thing will penetrate anything." Foreshadowing, no, it didn't.
No, it didn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. That would have been really top notch. And yeah, still keeping it spoiler free. I will say, I don't know. I don't think I'm pretty sure I didn't say it on the podcast, so it's easy for me to be called out as a liar on this. But I did definitely, for the wrong reasons, I'll say. But I did definitely have strong convictions that the twist that happened in this episode was a twist that was coming, just from little breadcrumbs. I think I said something on the podcast last time. So when we get into spoilers, we can go more into that. But my wife and I were swapping theories constantly, and the one I kept coming back to was a version of what happened. So not for the right reasons, and not with the right characters in mind, but with the right actors being at the focal point of the twist. So I whatever. I don't often get those kinds of things right, so I was happy that I was able to just kind of guess this twist a little bit. So
Well, it'll be interesting to see what you're thinking, because obviously there's been a lot of theories out there, and obviously that's what makes you know obviously we have nowadays we have Netflix and we have Amazon Prime and
Mhm.
Hulu and whatnot, and we've kind of changed as a society the way we view the shows.
Yeah,
Obviously, we'll binge. We had Stranger Things that came out on a Friday. I had it watched by midday Saturday.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like what Disney's doing. It's bringing that cooler conversation to the table.
That's true.
It's making you theorize. It reminds me of when I was watching Lost, and the minute Lost would end, I would go to Entertainment Weekly and I would read hours upon hours the theories by Jeff
Oh,
Jensen about
my gosh.
what the lottery ticket meant, or what the messages meant, and what was the Dharma Initiative. And I felt like we're all now, and all of us have the power to research it.
Mhm.
However, at the same time, we've all also take a little bit of the luster off the shows.
Right.
For example, when Pietro came,
Right. Right. That was very, yeah. And so, and by the way, yeah, spoilers for anything that happened before this now. Yeah. Yeah. That whole thing was very, um, I'm glad that you used that water cooler moment language, because yeah, I think that really went away in our bingeable seasons. And as much as I have this sort of immediacy that kind of conditioned into me from um, recent releases in the last year and a half or two, since I've been more into streaming shows, I do like that there's some lag time, especially because we know there's not going to be even 10 episodes. The episodes are, admittedly, maybe I would week to week like that they would be a little bit longer, but since there's not a lot of fluff or padding, like they really don't beat around the bush. I'm very glad for what we get. It's very good.
Andy, what did you like about the episode?
So are we gonna get into spoiler territory now?
Maybe just talk about the things
Yeah.
that you liked, and then we can go to the spoilers.
So generalities, I would say, in terms of the style, I like that there was I don't, this is, if you're very spoiler sensitive, it's not a plot detail, so it's not really a spoiler, but, the show has had this cumulative effect up until now of, each era was sort of represented, each television era was sort of represented throughout each episode. And then in this episode, because to match sort of the fervor of, pursuant to the end of last week, things kind of going off the rails and becoming out of control. It was still a Modern Family Office era TV show for the most part, but there were visual cues to sort of show the history of WandaVision so far, and sort of that loss of control, that loss of focus on what's going on with Wanda emotionally. Um, so I like that they were able to toy with what we've seen happen in the hex already, and kind of how that sort of expressed itself in the here and now. So like, just as like a very specific example that you couldn't possibly guess plot details on, when she's using the milk, it goes from like a modern milk carton to like a missing kid milk carton to like a glass milkman jug that the milkman might leave by your front door, like a carafe. And so like some of the items were like transmuting, kind of reverting back to like non-specific times in history, kind of desynchronized from everything else going on. So I kind of like that there was some sort of there were little hints of that in earlier episodes where Vision would see, people on the periphery of the hex kind of not really, not really doing their duties. Somebody just kind of, pantomiming, moving around a clothesline, or like, kind of pushing a lawnmower back and forth or something like that.
Oh, are you talking about the Halloween episode?
Yes, yes. So yeah, obviously that's not transforming objects like I'm talking about now, but the idea that Wanda's powers have limitations, and sort of what some of those things visually are expressed by is kind of cool, because it's kind of hard to put words to what her powers are, what she does exactly, what the limits of her powers are, but to show them kind of, I think, communicates at one time some uncertainty, but also kind of, oh yeah, like, she isn't all powerful. She's very powerful, but like, she can't do everything. She can't just make this illusion seamless as bad as she wants it to be. And with these visual representations introduced in this new episode, with the items transmuting and things changing and things like that. Another one, the boys are playing video games and it goes from like a down to a GameCube controller to like an Atari joypad. Like, so like, items are just kind of transforming without her ability to sort of maintain the illusion anymore. So I think that's kind of cool. How about you? What did you think?
I was a really big fan of the whole circus beginning of the episode.
The new part of the hex that got added, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the whole dynamic between Darcy and Vision. And the thing that I really enjoy about the show is, I mean, two ways. It's short, which kind of leaves you for more, but
For sure.
also it does a really good job being effective in that 30 to 32 minutes. Essentially, if you were someone that did not spend the last 12 years watching the Marvel Universe,
Uh-huh.
you could jump in and be in that car. So it was almost like Darcy was speaking to the audience when she was talking to Vision. Oh, wait, so this guy came and took the stone out of my head, and my fiance or my girlfriend watched me die, and it kind of really brought you to the spot. It made you feel the emotions that you felt when you watched Infinity War.
Yeah.
You and I were well versed. We kind of knew, we're very familiar with what Thanos does, and when the snap happened, we all left the movie as if we'd lost some of our friends.
Right.
And like, that kind of brought me back into that moment, without even saying Thanos' name, without even evoking. They were able to bring us back, and they kind of brought the pain. The obviously it is a show about superheroes in tights, but it also brings you, earlier you talked about Stockholm syndrome, but it kind of brings you like talking about grief and talking about like coping, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about in the spoiler section. Is she really losing control, or is this a manifestation of what's happening around her?
Yeah.
And I was a big fan of that, and obviously Vision saying, well, this is they're taking mini steps, so like they're taking one step forward, two step back. They're driving, but then all of a sudden it starts raining. Wait, does it really rain in Westview? And the rain stops, then they get stopped by the light, and it's the longest light. And trust me, I live in a city where sometimes I'm driving at night and I get stuck by the light for like 2-3 minutes, and there's no one around me. So I felt the pain that Darcy and Vision were feeling in that regard. But then Vision said something like, when there's that moment of that documentary style, he's sitting on the star's chair and he's talking. He's like, wait, why am I talking to you? I need to go to my wife.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he just like flies out of the vehicle.
Oh, we're getting spoiler mode here now. We're getting close with it. Okay. Let's go to spoilers. Okay, I'll tell you. I'm not going to make Pete do any fancy editing. If he ends up doing some sweet spoilers here, that's fine. I'll tell you what. When my hat is forward again, then you have fast forwarded far enough. So okay. So Yeah, so like I that actually was a really good moment. I was like literally by that point, as short as the episode is, kind of like, dude, he can fly. Why is he letting Wanda's little subconscious, blockades, the construction crew stop him from confronting her? And then when for me, it really matched when it reached that fever pitch of me wanting that to be over. He just like took off, and she's like, "Okay, I'll see you there." So yeah, that was funny. I liked that.
And also, what I thought was very slapsticky about that is that obviously he is a powerful being. If he
Mhm.
were to go through the roof of a vehicle, he would shatter it. But it almost looked like as if he was like going through a plastic. You see the roof like open up and stretch out. And
Well,
I,
he
I
did.
thought,
He uses his phase shift thing is how he goes through it.
right. I just thought that was really cool. I guess maybe I was just like so caught up in the moment. But like I think you're right. You know what? He probably doesn't break through it.
No, no, yeah, he just uses his like, yeah, he can just phase shift stuff without damaging it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's his whole.
Okay, so
You remember back in the in when Spider-Man's talking about moving into the Avengers, the upstate New York facility, and Tony makes a joke about Vision not being good with boundaries because he doesn't use doors. He just goes through all the walls.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Then my apologies.
No, 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 it's okay. Yeah, but I like that he took off there, and I like that I don't know if Pietro's not coming back now. If he was too, he kind of seemed to have gone away after she sort of confronted him last episode and blasted him off. I don't know if I don't, I by now I knew they weren't cashing in on the whole X-Men thing. I mean, they still planted that seed a little bit, but I fully expected him to come back with some kind of escalation of their confrontation. And not to say it didn't get to a point last time, but it was very much, the confrontation kind of came and went. And now he must represent something too threatening of her ability to not she didn't bring him there on purpose. So as she tries to sort of truncate her experience to try to control this world better, with all the items changing, with Pietro, I guess, just being gone. Yeah, I don't know. It's very clear now that there is more to that going on, pursuant to the big twist we've been referring to. Um, but before I get into that, I don't know if you had any other moments you wanted to touch on.
I was going to mention that one of the things that we didn't mention last time is the commercials in between the show. Like obviously the fake commercials, and this time it was a commercial about Nexus, and obviously what that means. And there's this woman who is almost like a commercial for depression,
Like
and
antidepressant or something? Yeah.
obviously, if you're familiar with what Nexus means, it's essentially control of your life, and bigger things. And Andy, if you could offer a little bit more on that point. And then but simultaneously, you see what's going on with Wanda. She doesn't want to get out. You've seen her in bed with her Halloween costume.
Mhm.
She doesn't want to get out of bed. Then she goes downstairs and she just wants a little bit of alone time, not even around her kids.
Mhm.
And Andy spoke about this at length. All of a sudden, she's trying to watch TV or she's trying to have milk, and then she's losing control. Again, what is causing all this? Is it her? Is it somebody else? Obviously, I'll have Andy talk about the big
Yeah.
reveal.
Yeah. So, well, I thought, obviously the big character reveal was that, what's her name? What's the actress's name? Kathy something? Kathy.
I can look it up. Agnes.
Yeah. Agnes Harkness is the character's name, but Kathy, it turns out to be. And they have this like very funny, as items keep on reverting, that sort of reaches a fever pitch when Agnes reveals herself to be Agatha. Which the names are pretty close. It's an obscure enough comic book character for me that I actually only like. Gosh, like I understand who the character is, but like I wasn't big in Fantastic Four, which is where she popped up sometimes. I wasn't big in like Doctor Strange and some of the full on mystic side of Marvel, which is really, it's interesting because Wanda very much is like the mutant. Talking outside of MCU for a second, in the comic book realm, Wanda is sort of like the mutant, sort of mystical for sure, but like as scientific of an explanation as mystical as things kind of get. On the sort of spectrum from scientific to mystical, Wanda is very near the moderate side of that spectrum, But on the scientific side, for sure, she still has mutant parentage and all this stuff. Agatha Harkness is very much kind of like full bore, like on the far, just as far down the line, maybe even farther than Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange at least kind of it it was a man of science that inherited powers, or not inherited, but pursued powers of the mystic arts. She's just straight up like a witch, like was born a witch, like was a witch back to the Salem witch hunt days, like the fictionalized history that Marvel Comics wove in to kind of match some of our own lived history. Agatha has this history in all that. So like I'm not overly familiar with the character, but she's like as magic gets when it comes to Marvel characters. So like the fact that she is the fact that they're intersecting there, it's not unheard of for Wanda to have dealings with the other mystical characters in Marvel, but it's definitely like I don't know. It just kind of it's interesting. Like Agatha has an effect on her effect is purple rather than red, like Wanda's. But what she does to Wanda, to where kind of a purple sort of haloing happens around her face, and then her eyes turn purple, and kind of like almost like a little like digital like scan of her face happens. That was the exact or very similar to the effect that Wanda would do to people back in Age of Ultron when she would sort of transfix somebody. So she's essentially having a taste of her own medicine, but in some sense, a different brand of magic, I guess. I don't know how they're gonna rectify that in the MCU explanation of how that works, because the only taste of that we've gotten in the pure MCU is Doctor Strange. So I really don't know what that's gonna look like. But they show her secret layer and kind of some uh, you know some of the dark arts that she's been doing to kind of clearly mess with Wanda. I don't know whether the dark arts that she's doing are going to explain away all of Wanda's actions. I don't think I did say this on the podcast. What I was talking with Peter, and I had said this to my wife, that I was really hoping that if Agnes, who I thought at the time, ended up being the bad guy, that they didn't explain away all of Wanda's behaviors as just somebody else's fault. Like I really hope she's on the hook for it a little bit, because she really did not handle any of this very well with it, Vision passing. But if Agnes, or if Agatha, I guess if we call her by her true name, knew that I always want to say Stryker, but it's not Stryker. That's from X-Men. What's Rambo's ex-boss's name? The douchebag guy. Whatever the director of the field operation that was going all gung ho on everybody.
Director. Of course, it's that.
That's okay. Anyway, I know if she's trying to interfere with Vision somehow being brought back to life by them, which is kind of what Rambo seemed to find out from some of Kat Denning's hacking skills that happened. Hayward, right? Yeah. So maybe Agatha's trying to stop Hayward for some reason, because I don't know. I mean, if she's a bad guy, having Vision in the world really is obviously not to her best interest. But I think more than that too, maybe she thinks she can corrupt Wanda and bring her into some sort of whatever her witch coven is or something. I don't know. I'm not really sure what her aims are, but yeah, it's interesting to see. And so as everything kind of devolved, the Agatha All Along song kind of flipped everything back to this sort of a larger than life TV motif that we've had. It was almost kind of a monsters or something kind of vibe to it, with what the theme song was like. It was very 50s again, lost color, aspect ratio pulled in. The font was very kind of monstery. So yeah, she really kind of as soon as she sort of hexed Wanda, she sort of reasserted her intense control with the constricted aspect ratio and everything, brought back into that fantastical TV realm. So
one of the other big reveals was the origin story of Photon, aka Monica Rambeau. I touched earlier on how she tried to use the big NASA / Fantastic Four truck to go through the force field or the hex, and obviously is due to the bad foreshadowing, the truck doesn't go through, but she forces her way through. and all of a sudden, as she's going through, if you had closed captioning on, as I've been having it watching the show, because I feel like, and Andy, I don't know if you missed it or you saw this, just kind of go back to when Wanda is in the kitchen and the bottles of milk are changing. You see all these words, and you hear all these this language. And
Yeah.
at one point, Carly's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Well, I think they're supposed to be connected, but it's also like the TV in the background." And it's WandaVision is one of those shows where you have to go back and kind of see what you missed. But I kind of want to stay on Monica Rambeau because we saw an origin story. We saw
Yeah.
how
Isn't it?
she
Yeah.
gets her powers, and once she is through that force field, she sees everything as matrixy. She sees
Right.
all like the sources of energy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, the power lines and the transformers, she can see the electromagnetic fields around that stuff, she can see so
and I think this is where you and I might differ a little bit. I don't think Disney and I don't think Feige is going to make Wanda the big bad of this show.
I don't think so. No, I'm not necessarily saying I want that per se. I just feel like they kind of went down this direction, and I think they did some genuine character development while they were exploring her failings to handle this. That like to say it was someone else's fault, kind of you can't take back that character development or I should say you can't take back her wrongdoings without taking back that character development in my eyes. I mean, maybe they'll find a way, but
I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't want to oversimplify it, but it could just be someone that, was really finding themselves at a loss, was
yeah,
grieving, and maybe was taken advantage of. We'll find out to what extent
yeah.
that situation was. But I know you talked at length, just like you. Obviously, I am a comic book reader. I'm someone that listens to a lot of podcasts regarding comic books and watch a lot of YouTube videos on it.
Mhm.
One of the popular theories was that Agnes was going to be Agatha Harkness. I felt like that was one of the
Was
worst
that
kept.
broadcasted already? I was trying to keep myself away from other people's views. I didn't know that. Okay.
I mean, I would say that just from the get go, a lot of the nerds out there,
Ah,
Agnes is pretty close to Agatha Harkness. So I had gone ahead and kind of done a little bit of research, and I'd seen a comic book spread
so I'm not as clever
where,
as I thought. I see. I see.
well, I mean, I think you are if you don't have the context. I try to keep my own thoughts and not kind of bring the thoughts from the other shows. I like to also be making my guesses. I was really rooting for a John Krasinski, Reed Richards. I'm still having my fingers crossed, although I don't think they're going to touch on the Fantastic Four or the X-Men like you stated earlier.
Right. I don't think so, Mike. Especially
Um,
if they already now that they did this origin story for Photon, I feel like that was really the big superhero development that's gonna if they explore it outside of this, right? Like Photon's gonna be a big part of Captain Marvel too, probably, and that'll be, you know,
then obviously, there's a lot of lore in this. I know you touched on Agatha Harkness and her background with magic and how she is a straight up witch.
and
One
she
of the
does have a background with Fantastic Four. She did do babysitting for Franklin Richards and stuff like that. So
okay,
I'm not saying it's impossible for Fantastic Four, but it just doesn't seem like.
there's 2 episodes left, and there's a lot that needs to happen.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that there's a connection between WandaVision and the new Doctor Strange.
Sure, that's gotta be the next
There's going to
connection.
be, and again, another popular theory that is out there is that somehow, some way, we might see a character that didn't see closure in the Doctor Strange movies, Mordo,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. I mean, we already know he's back as the bad guy, right?
Mordo at the end of Doctor Strange is heard saying too many wizards or too many sorcerers.
Mhm.
So maybe in the next 2 episodes, again, this is a theory that's out there. Maybe he will make an appearance, and maybe that will make a connection right into the universe of madness.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Yeah, we'll see.
And then obviously, we for the first time in the WandaVision show, we had our we had end credits. And if you stuck around for the end credits, Andy, did you stick around for the end credits?
I did. Yeah.
And do you want to talk about the reveal?
I don't remember what it was. Give me the beginning of it. Give me the setup.
So we see Photon or Monica Rambo approaching the house in an old-timey back way into the garage or the basement.
Into the basement. Oh, right. That's Agatha's lair that I was talking about before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that was in the post reveal. Yeah, and it looks like there's a lot of, some of the stuff down there was like there was like I mean, it's like all mist. It's like, again, it looks like could have been a room out of the Sanctum Sanctorum. It was like a really, I think wasn't there like a portal or like a mirror that had like some kind of magic effect on it. There was like a cabinet that had like there's a lot of reflective stuff in there. Yeah, it was.
There was a book there that the name escapes me. Again, there's a lot of lore that I am not as familiar with. I guess.
Yeah, on the mystic side, that really goes outside my comfort zone. Yeah.
But then, as she is snooping around, as she's opening the door to get into the basement, she is greeted by a certain someone. Do you remember who greets her?
Wait, did my auto player cut me off before then? I didn't see that.
Yeah, Pietro greets her.
Oh, so Pietro did go. See, my stupid Disney autoplay, sometimes it jumped to some other whatever was next to my watch list, and I killed it. But oh man, it robbed me of that. I didn't know. I thought I remember her turning and looking, and then I thought it was just over. I thought it was going to be a surprise next time. Oh shit. Okay.
No, there's Pietro with purple glowing eyes, and right before that, you see that her eyes are glowing, but her eyes were glowing the blue.
Like her power. Yeah.
Her power. So. And
okay.
Pietro says something, and then it ends.
Okay, interesting. Well, the idea that Pietro could be controlled by a pure magic user, especially that gets into the realm of Mephisto and the dead, and they clearly Pietro did die in the MCU, whatever version of him they're showing. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're meddling with dark arts, they can use the dead as their servants and stuff like that. Who knows? Yeah, it's hard to say, but
and obviously we saw Agatha pulling all the strings when Pietro first showed up to the front door. You see Agatha in the background. And
yeah, so even without the context of who Agatha Harkness is, that's why I guessed it was her. She was always around and never really shocked by Wanda not hiding her powers. And when the kid's puppy ran away, and she was the one that found it, and she was always just there, right in the nick of time. Like every time something was going on, that I don't think it's that clever that I guessed that she was a bigger player than what she was letting on, especially who's cast in the part. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I just didn't. I don't know a lot about Harkness at all, besides what I understand from the few times she intersected with Fantastic Four or anybody on the science side of the spectrum. So we'll see.
And they tried to throw us off last week when Vision encounters her at a stop sign or at the light,
she just fibbed, right? Yeah,
she fibbed.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's a beautiful job by Catherine Hahn, who plays also female Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, she's the best.
She's a fantastic actress, so I think it's going to be interesting to see what she does with the role in the next 2 episodes. Do you have any predictions for episode number 8 that it will come out this Friday?
You know what? I'm hoping that we finally get to see, with it, the penultimate episode. I hope we finally get to see Vision and Wanda have the confrontation that they've needed to have for Wanda to kind of accept. And I think the only person, funnily enough, that will get her to accept that he's dead is him. So I really hope that gets to happen, and maybe it will probably mean his re-demise, but I think I hope he's able to help her confront whatever's going on to make it so that she can be in control of the situation alone and be given a chance to make the right decision. That could maybe kind of help. That could maybe be a plot beat that helps preserve her character development through some of the potential mind control that she's experienced. But yeah, I really want to see the confrontation between her and Vision.
I think that's very valid. I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm hoping for another big bad. I don't think I will get it. I know that names such as Mephisto and Nightmare have been thrown around.
Right.
Maybe I just need to kind of just, maybe for me it's just I need to step back and just kind of enjoy the show. I'm
Yeah.
looking for the Easter eggs. I'm looking for the universe to expand. However, I just need to enjoy it. I really I go back to that very interesting conversation and very innocent conversation that Darcy and Vision had on the truck on the way to seeing Wanda,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really would worry that not that they couldn't seed any more characters in, but I feel like they would risk if they seeded any more in. I think they would risk sacrificing a good finale for a, a plot device to see to sort of launch their next platforms in the universe. So I really hope they don't go too much with that. I think something's going to happen where Rambo, we probably won't see much of her. Not to say she won't play a part at all, but I think whatever part she plays in the conflict, she's going to play her part to be helpful, but then be taken out of the field, and and she'll be relegated to further adventures with Captain Marvel. I could see Agatha maybe at least communing with Mephisto, even if we don't really get a clear look. So the idea of Mephisto is at least put in our minds. But that would be like that would be like Dormammu showing up in this, which that's a little bit of separate thing. I know I said I'm not a huge mystic guy. I think how they handled and portrayed Dormammu was actually pretty lame compared to how he is in the comics. Like in the comics, he's like a very power of Grayskull, like Skeletor, like a flaming like pyre head with like a floating evil skull face inside of it. Like, and he was just like this rippling giant kind of dimensional plane with a face. Like, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I hope they handle Mephisto differently than that. I mean, Mephisto's basically the devil in the Marvel universe. So I could see some cool stuff with her communicating with Mephisto a little bit, but I hope it's really just kind of like still in service of her character being established as a bad guy on her own merits, rather than to just show more people. You know what I mean?
I think one of the things, and obviously we can end our conversation with Wanda after this. In retrospect, you look back at some of the previous Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, such as Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, and Thor: The Dark World, and you kind of go back, and if you watch those movies in isolation, you're like, well, you know what? I don't know if that movie really achieved what it wanted to do, but 23 movies later and this first MCU show, you kind of see that every single one of these movies put a lot of wheels in motion. So
Right.
you might think to yourself, well, you know what? Who is Mephisto? Mephisto plays a pretty big role in the Infinity Gauntlet. He's one of the people that is advising. And obviously, we're talking comics and we're not talking the movies, but Mephisto was right into Thanos' ear, and he
Right.
had his own ambitions.
Yeah.
So obviously, you might say, well, it's throwing too much, but it is a starting point. But I also like the idea of just hinting of Mephisto and then maybe introducing him properly into the Doctor Strange movie.
So we're done with Wanda spoilers for now.
I think we're good with Wanda.
Okay. All right. Good with Wanda for now. So that's topic of the show. Let's get into the nerdosphere a little bit. What sort of things have been floating your boat besides Wanda? Any other shows or comic books or gear you've been using lately?
The one thing that I've been really stressed with work, and there's been a lot going on. I've kind of found a new coping strategy. I know that our name is Nerds on the Run. Finally been going out there running. It's been, the temperature has been climbing over 20, and Andy, for those who don't know, Andy will run in any temperature. I usually have a rule. I usually try wind chill around 20, and that's when you'll
Not
see me out
anytime.
there.
I do wind chill 5. I don't like to do negative. Yeah.
I don't do anything below 20, so it's been nice. But one of the things that kind of going the opposite of way of running is food, but in the sense of I've been watching. Carly's brother was in town, during Thanksgiving, and he was in town during Christmas, and he introduced us to a show on YouTube, Binging with Babish.
Oh yeah, Babish. Yeah, he's got a lot of nerd cred. He does a lot of recipes from the Nerdoverse.
So I've been finding that very relaxing. So much so where I just put it in the background and I just kind of watch, and
He has a
just
very soothing. He has a very soothing voice.
yeah, very very soothing. Sometimes monotonous, but it serves its purpose. And just before we start the show, I was watching Basic with Babish, how to make oh boy, uh, the cabbage, Korean cabbage,
Oh, kimchi.
kimchi.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'll be watching after we are done with this show. So that's what I've been nerding on.
That's great, dude. And hey, it does have a through line with the Marvel universe. He has such credit in the culinary amateur universe. He actually, I don't know if you've gotten far enough into some of his side content that he's done, the Babish like culinary universe or whatever. But he actually got to hang out with Kevin Feige, or no, I'm sorry, not Kevin Feige, John Favreau, and John Favreau bought him a cooking skewer and stuff like that. So they because John Favreau from his chef movie and other times he's a big culinary guy too. So he actually did get to hang out with some of the Marvel geeks a little bit because he went from being internet famous, I think, to real famous that day. So
Yeah, I haven't watched that episode. It's on my to do or on my to watch list, but I've heard him drop the Babish universe lingo before, and even Carly picked that up, and she's like,
yeah,
Babish universe, and like I
yeah.
feel like that's become such a it kind of like you said, it went from being internet famous to real famous. That
Right.
terminology now is it's now eventually it's going to find itself in the Webster's dictionary.
Yeah, right, for real. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that's cool. I love Babish. I'm
How
happy
about
to see.
you?
I've been trying to get some of the games off my back catalog. I'm near the end. I admittedly I haven't played it much at all this week because work was kind of nuts, but I'm very near the end of the Miles Morales Spider-Man standalone game. So the Spider-Man, I got it on PS4. I don't have a PS5, but I'm very near the end of the missions, and I will say, like I won't go into the story or spoilers or anything like that, a full review or anything. But for already having Spider Verse out there as a movie and already having Miles in the comics, the way that he is, the Marvel game studio version of Spider-Man is even yet another version of Spider-Man for people that aren't as obsessed with Spider-Man as me. We got our Tom Holland version. We have our Spider-Verse version in the animated. There's actually a separate version of Peter Parker that exists in this game universe too. And little spoilers, but Peter and Miles actually coexist from the same universe. It's not some universe spanning thing. It's not like in the comics where a version of Peter Parker dies and then Miles takes over. This universe, Peter and Miles both exist, and Miles becomes Spider-Man's protege. And so this version of Miles is still manages to be unique even from the version of Miles in Spider-Verse, which I found impressive. I really thought they would just try to cash in on the same stuff, but he's still his own character and different in a lot of ways. But they really go heavy with those Venom powers, with the kind of the bioelectric power. It's like turned up to 12 on how much they lean into that stuff. So it's a really satisfying game. It's super fun. I'm really worried that they made Miles so much cooler than Peter compared to the first game that I don't know how they're gonna for Spider-Man 2. I know you're gonna go back to playing as Peter. I don't know how that's gonna be cool anymore, but we'll see. But I'm almost done. I'm near the end, and so yeah, they have some really fresh takes on. They really. This is true of the first Spider-Man game of Peter Parker, but they managed to keep this through line for the Miles game. They managed to that place where being Spider-Man and being whoever you are behind the mask really intersect in different ways. I don't want to spoil anything, but just yeah, there's that part of hey, who you are in your private life when you go out and be Spider-Man, you're gonna find conflicting interests that pull you into should I operate how I would operate as the man behind the mask or the person behind the mask? Should I do the thing that Spider-Man does? And usually they choose the latter, but it has consequences. So yeah, it's a really excellent game.
So I heard in terms of gameplay, it's very similar to the Spider-Man game. as far as the mechanics. Is
To the
that
first
the
one,
case?
yeah, it's very similar. Just instead of so Peter has a whole thing where he's got gadgets. He's got all sorts of different gadgets to modulate and amplify his webbing abilities. Miles doesn't have that many gadgets. He just uses his bioelectric powers to paralyze or weaken enemies and stuff like that. So yeah.
I'd like to someday attempt these games, but my attention span and lack of time will make it very difficult. But
I
who
know.
knows?
Well, the Miles game is really short. That's the other thing. It's one of these. Not to get in a whole separate conversation, but it's kind of this trend of it's not a true sequel. It's all they reused a lot of the assets and it's built on the same engine, but it is a separate story and separate missions and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a 1.5 game, So it's not a full sequel, and it's only like 6 hours long, probably. 6-8 hours long. If you really take your time and see everything there's to see, maybe it's 12, 15 hours. You could do it in a month or something, but. Or for avid gamers, you could probably do it in a weekend, honestly. But yeah, it's a little experience, and you don't even really have to have played the first one. It helps for sure because it kind of sets up how that version of Spider-Man works. But if you know Spider-Man, you know this game. It's not going to be a big deal. So yeah, I want to finish Miles. I'm not going to play it again until probably Saturday, but I want to finish Miles this weekend. So
Good deal.
okay, so last but not least, little bonus piece of gear, something for show and tell. This is going to be probably what I'm nerding on in future visits. You want me to go first for this one, or you have something?
Sure. I mean, no, you go ahead.
Okay, so well, not to be a total poser, but I've read like maybe the first 3 or 4 issues, and I kept after Robert Kirkman's run on Walking Dead ended, I fell out of the show pretty easily, but I read the series all the way through. I had some criticisms about Charlie Adler's work by the end, being a little samey, but Robert Kirkman's lore building and world building and character building was on point the whole time. So everyone keeps saying it. I know there's a show coming out soon. So I got after reading like the first, actually not the first 3 issues. I'm sorry. I read I think the first 3 trades, but I got the
wow.
I got the Invincible compendium.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gonna start hauling through Invincible and see where it goes. I kind of have the basic premise is it's well, I don't want to spoil anything, but the really basic, the elevator pitch is, if there was a world like Superman, Superman's son, and what it would be like to grow up being the son of somebody who's respected like Superman. It's a lot more complicated than that actually, but kind of that sort of idea. And clearly he has powers of his own eventually and stuff like that. But yeah, it's since it's that Image brand comics, it's not overly saturated with a lot of different superheroes and a lot of different crossovers. It's just sort of this insulated superhero world. Yeah, the cartoon is coming out. I think it's been delayed because of the Backstreet Boys World Tour, as some people are calling it, to avoid the YouTube algorithm scrubbing these things. But the present situation of why we're doing a podcast like this, it is a cartoon with Stephen Yeun, who was friends with Robert Kirkman from being Glenn on the Walking Dead show. He's going to voice the titular character in the cartoon. So I'm looking forward to getting a little ahead in that before the cartoon starts. Kind of like last week when I was saying I was reading Wheel of Time to get ahead of that show. I'm trying to read the things that I'm looking forward to watching pretty soon.
And do you know who plays his dad on the Amazon show?
No, I did look up when they did the casting announcement, but it didn't stick in my memory.
I'm gonna just double check it. But I think it is Jonah Jameson, the actor.
You're talking. It's yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, J.K. Simmons, right?
J.K. Simmons, I think, is supposed to play his dad.
That does ring a bell. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep,
yeah, they released a teaser for it, and yeah, that's awesome.
I believe his name is Omni-Man, correct?
Omni-Man, yeah.
Omni-Man. All right. Since you talked about a graphic novel, I also picked up a graphic novel that I am unlike you. I have not as far into it as you are.
I'm starting over. I read it years ago. I got to start.
Oh, I wasn't sure. Oh, I didn't know that you had been reading. I know you're a big Spider-Man fan, and I know that the artist from Amazing Spider-Man had moved on to Invincible, but
Yeah.
I did not know that you read that. Well, anyways, one of and I was trying to okay, one of I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and they had Rick Remender on the podcast, and
Mhm.
he's a California guy, born and raised in Pasadena. Kind of talked about his skater
Mhm.
days. I was a really big fan of one of his shows. One of his graphic novels was turned into a show on the Sci-Fi Network, and I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, Andy. It was called Deadly Class.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was almost like I would say a school for assassins.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm familiar. Yeah, yeah.
I think the show came out at the wrong time. It was one of those times where uh, there was a lot of content out there,
Right.
but it was kind of talking about teenage angst, kind of in the Reagan era, but
Uh,
really intertwined, built a pretty solid universe. I've actually read the first two issues of Deadly Class, but the show was great. But regardless, one of the books that I picked up of his is Fear Agent. This is also, there's talk about this being in a show. So it talks
oh,
about a guy
okay.
being, yeah. I'll probably be able to tell you a little bit more next time we talk.
Yeah, yeah. Once it becomes what we're nerding on, but it looks sharp. Let me see that
Yeah,
cover one more time.
yeah, Fear Agent is I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
we got some non-living things, and we got a guy with a pretty big ranch in his hand and swatting these dead things.
Yeah, dang. Okay, well,
Yeah, but
we'll see. That's is that like a double trade? It looks big, or is it just like a mini series all collected?
this is trade number one.
It's just
So
one
I'm
trade.
guessing, yeah, so I'm guessing probably 6 issues in here.
Okay, got it.
Rick Remender is also known for writing like Tokyo Ghost and more some of his more. So obviously this is an independent comic from Image. So like Tokyo Ghost, Deadly Class, Low, Black Science. These are all Image books, but he's also known for writing Uncanny X-Men when he was with Marvel too.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, wow. We'll have more to geek on about this stuff once we get into reading it, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, this has been Nerds on the Run. Again, I'm Andy. This is Ari. Please let us know what we're doing right with some comments below. Follow us if you want to see what we're doing coming up, and we will be talking with you all again very soon. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Thanks for tuning in.